Welcome to Talk to Brazil with Tom Reaoch, the business connector to business in Brazil. Welcome to Talk to Brazil, the business connection, a leading business podcast about business in the world. I'm Tom Reaoch, an American known as the king of networking, connecting people from my studio in Brazil. And today's guest back again is Priscilla Nyahwa-Shumba. She's founder of Reinvent.co, helping early entrepreneurs win at business. She's joining us today from Rosebery, Tasmania, Australia. Priscilla is also an author, podcast host at Reinventing Perspectives podcast. So Priscilla, welcome again to Talk to Brazil. We talk a lot about change, things that change and things that stay the same. We talked almost a year ago. So what's changed for you personally and professionally?
Thank you for having me here again, Tom. I can't believe it's been a year already. Where is time going? I guess the only constant thing we know is change, right? So 2022 is coming to an end and so many things are happening. I think personally for me, the last time we spoke, I was in Perth, based in Perth, Australia. And now I'm based in Tasmania, the island state of Australia. A lot of people don't know that. And I'm based in Rosebery. So I'm very far away from where anything is happening. And it's lovely because of this digital world. It doesn't feel that way.
Well, you might be in the center of the world and not know it.
Oh, I might be. So it's great to connect with you again and to have the honor of talking to you and your audience.
Now, what I see when we talk, Australia is continental, but it's also, if you look at it on the map, it looks like a big island, right? And it's also not far, well, it's sort of removed from everything else because it is a massive island. Now you've gone to a smaller island as part. So how does how being on Tasmania, how do you feel part of Australia?
I tell you, I actually don't really feel part of mainland Australia. We talk about it, we say, oh, are you going to the mainland? So that's how far removed we are. It's a beautiful island. I mean, completely, somewhat in a lot of places untouched. It's not commercialized like the mainland is. So it feels like its own world and people love to come here just for that.
Well, how do you get to the mainland? I mean, is it close? Is it far? Do you fly? Do you go by boat?
Well, you can
ferry,
fly,
what?
you can go by boat. You can fly, you can go by boat. Either way. Overnight, you can go by boat. You can also fly, and it's fairly affordable to fly from here to the mainland. It's not too far.
But what's Tasmania? What are the main focal points of Tasmania?
Well, I'd say that Tasmania is more like we have a lot of people that sort of have grown up here, and it does feel so different from the mainland. It's almost like the mainland is moving at a faster pace than Tasmania, the island. So I think people who actually have grown up here would not like to live in the mainland.
Aha.
That's how different it is. And you sort of have that preserved areas of nature and just a life of, if you wanted to be camping and you can drive around the island, and it's very family focused and slow moving. So
the reverse then I take is people from the mainland enjoy going to Tasmania because that's what you've done.
Well, people from the mainland like to come here for a break from the mainland. I tell you, when I got here, it was like, where is everything? And everything, it's like we've gone back in time. But the longer I've been here, I really do, everything just seems so wonderful to me now because it's like I've been reset from all the over-commercialism of a fast-moving world.
Well, that's the point we're talking about. So there are things that may not change quickly, and there are things that change maybe too fast. And that's the real world. That's the whole world today. And when we talk about a business environment, that's what I see everywhere. The people are just overrun by change, overrun by this time element.
Yes, for sure. I think for the business element, because I know I work a lot with early entrepreneurs, I think you're seeing it as well, Tom, where it's like during the pandemic, everyone sort of moved online.
Right.
And now it's like this everyone's online and so many voices are online, bombarding people online, and sort of trying to figure out where your space is online. And perhaps maybe now is the time to do more offline and a little bit of online. It's sort of a time to re-strategize going forward as to what entrepreneurs feel will be best for their businesses.
Well, I feel that myself because just recently, many of the business associations that I have been part of have just gone back to having events face to face. Because up to that time, everything, either meetings or commemorations were all virtual. And when at the beginning of the pandemic, that was it. That was the offer. But we seem to be overrun with so many, everything going virtual, basically one day to the next. And through time, that sort of sorted itself out, or I think we may have sorted things out. Because it was overburdened. It was, for me personally, just to be part of literally hundreds of lives and invitations and for things that normally you would never receive. Just to figure that out was a challenge. So that changed now to, let's say, the end of 2022, and what I see coming business-wise in many countries is really this back to face-to-face, back to real presence of people.
Oh, absolutely. I think I agree with you. I had a guest on the podcast, Judith Germain, and she's based in the UK. And she was telling me that at some point in time, it was like if you're producing content, someone needed to see something that you produced 7 times to decide if they want to engage. And now I think that number is well over 30, that they need to engage with your information before they decide if they even want to know what you're about. So you can just imagine how overwhelming that is on the side of the entrepreneur creating content, and also on the customer who's getting all this information of everyone being online. And now there's this competition of constant putting out of content and trying to figure out what's of value, what's not of value, who's real, who's not real, all those things.
Well, that point that you said, what is real and what is fake, is, I think, maybe our major challenge moving forward.
Absolutely. It's hard to decipher. Everything looks good, but it's hard to decipher, especially virtually, what is actually good and what's not good. And for you, the entrepreneur, you begin to think, well, how do I let the fact that what I'm offering be known that is actually something of quality and something good if I can't produce enough to get someone to engage with my content? So I think those are sort of the things we're thinking about as we think of change going into 2023. I don't know how you feel about it, Tom.
No, but I do see that there are things that will stay, the changes happen, but will also stay the same. And talking about virtual connections, I talk about networking quite a bit. And back to our original conversation last year and how we met, persons that you introduced me to, that I've also interviewed, were persons that we have never met. So we're talking about, we have never met personally. The probability of either I hopping on a plane or a boat and going to Tasmania or you coming to Brazil is pretty much close to zero. All right? For a number of reasons, not that I don't want to go and not that you may not want to come here. But that's not the point. But the world is a massive opportunity. So the plus side of virtual and remote, what it did open for many business persons the world, where they were only local. Everything that they thought they were going to do, they thought it would be local. But many of these companies have now realized there's a world out there. And the world is also the competition. The world has come.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's one thing to recognize this change that sort of happened. And it's another thing sort of think about, well, what does this mean? Because at the end of the day, like you said, it's still a massive opportunity. And what it comes down to, I think, for myself, going forward into 2023, is sort of understanding how to build community. And it's realizing that if you can build community, that's sort of the next phase. And this phase of sort of content being pushed out and creating results, I think it's sort of been, how can I say, the audience is fatigued. You now need to really focus on the people that you want to serve, focus on building community with them, focus on really serving them. It doesn't matter if it's 1 or 2 people, because if you go back to, they're talking about things that remain the same. Business fundamentals of, like, if you over-deliver value to the people that you're dedicated to targeting and serving them, they will go and tell other people.
Right.
It doesn't matter if it's virtual, it doesn't matter if it's in person, but going back to those things that never change and then understanding that, okay, audience is fatigued, but if I have a community and I serve the community, that will resonate. And then you don't have to compete with trying to pump out certain volumes of content too.
But also to that point, once we do create a community, it isn't ours. It's transitional. Because what I felt, even in what I do, competition's out there. Once and the world sees your success, they want to follow. And then we get back to what we were talking before about speed. All right, and people want to overtake you quickly. So one thing is to create the community, others to nurture it. And the third point, which might be the challenge, is how do we keep it modernized? How do we update a community? Because back to the local aspect, many communities, if we take Brazil as an example, and maybe partially what you've seen in the world, communities tend to want to, their self-preservation, right? And here in Brazil, we have the center of the city, we have the church, we have around the church, you had the pharmacy, you had the bread store, you had all the basics. And if you would go into many of these communities in Brazil, they're the same, they've always been the same, and traditionally every year they have a commemoration celebrating the sameness, right? But at the same time, internet has come, right? Opportunities from everywhere have come to these communities. And for the persons in those communities, even let's say the small store owner, and we're talking about business, many businesses in the world, they're small businesses. They've started with somebody opening up the door and offering something. So how do they keep updating themselves? How is that in Tasmania, which is an island in itself? How do you become modern in Tasmania?
I love that you've gone there because I think we were talking about this just before we went on air. I wish it was recorded because people would have benefited from that because I did. You know, what you said about speed and improving at the same time. I think from what I've seen, from my observation, is communities that depend on one person are very, very difficult to maintain. They wear on you, the person to whom you've created a community around you. It's at some point you can't service the community because it's just too much for one person. But communities that are built not around a person, but around a mission, an idea, and the people in the community feel empowered to learn from one another. I feel those are the communities that last because they're not driven by an individual. So I think sometimes part of it is just going and looking at what's working. Go and look at people in your industry and even people who are not in your industry. Just look at someone who's built a community, even an industry that's not the same as yours, and look at what's working. And then try and replicate that. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. It will cost you a lot of time and frustrate you and use up all your energy. So I think that's my thinking going to 2023.
But you don't get away in that from who you are is reinventing perspectives. So it's just reinventing. The word of reinventing is reinventing.
Yes.
Doing maybe the same thing in a different way. But I guess back to what you said, you have your community. You started your community. You started what you do before the pandemic, right? So you've been doing this. You've had your approach to who you are and what you are. And that was virtual, it was remote.
Yeah, it was remote. And I'm constantly thinking, like you said, what is the future of what my community needs? What are the things that they may need, but they don't yet know they need? And how can I bring those things to them? And then I'm constantly thinking, how can I improve the success of the community? Looking at what's happening, where are the gaps that are missing into making this more successful for them. So those are the aspects that I'm sort of like really focused on all the time in terms of like bettering. And I think like we were talking about before, having time to sort of step away from being in the community so that I can sort of look over the community and have time to think freely about, honestly, without being defensive, what am I doing that isn't working to serve these people and what can I do better?
And to that point, again, when I talk about the local businesses and the local challenges, the local business owner, whether it's a storefront or not, he's involved or she's involved in that business from, let's say, 9 to 5 or 8 to 6, is the case here in Brazil. Then they go home, maybe make dinner, watch a Netflix or whatever, and then next day they start all over again. And they don't adjust and don't give themselves the chance to step back and look out and see what's happening. And that's the challenge. And I think
absolutely.
So business persons, when we talked about the digital transformation, many persons still have not become digitally transformed. And the world's like 15 steps past that. Because where you are, you're right in the middle of Tasmania right now, and we're talking as we talked in Perth, and we're talking as we could talk anywhere. So it's not really where you are, it's what you have where you are. You need a good internet connection, right? If you have a good internet connection, you're in business.
Absolutely. And I see so many people sort of saying, oh, don't worry about going online, sort of go back to not being online. And I'm like, what are people talking about? It's one of those things where you can't reverse time. This is what it is. You can't try and go backwards, or else you're frustrating yourself. You need to learn to work with the way things are moving.
No, but I think to the point of going outside and taking a look, wherever you are and what you've just done, you've also helped us have a little description of what Tasmania is about. Because at the same time we can be speaking through internet, you could look out the window and tell me how it is there, and I can tell you how it is here in Brazil. And again, we may never see it personally. And that's the business sense, because what I think you've seen, and we talked about this before we started, it's a process. Life is a process. Businesses are full of processes, right? And
yes.
Once we help others understand that, and what you have done is connected people, your community efforts have connected persons in a number of different locations. It doesn't matter if it's Perth or Tasmania or Brazil, right?
Mm. And the beauty of it is sometimes, depending on where you are, you can sort of hear, oh, that's what people are doing over there. And if we here are doing this, we can actually tell that we're going to move in that direction. And if you have that information of what's coming, that gives you an advantage wherever you are, right?
No, and what you mentioned about Australia and Tasmania, with the people from the mainland wanting to go to Tasmania sort of as a unloading, right? Recalibration,
yeah.
mental recalibration, spiritual recalibration. Same thing here in Brazil. People want to leave the cities. And right now we're coming into our summer vacations. People just flee the cities. They'll go anywhere. They'll go to the beaches, they'll go to the mountains, they'll go anywhere. And really to try to find, let's say, a mental comfort.
I think it's necessary. I mean, in the times we're living in, things are moving fast, change is coming, but you need to make sure you give yourself time to reset, to re-energize so you can move and do the things you need to do. I think I like what you said, that you're also taking a little bit of a break. And I think I'm also going to take a little bit of a break just because you need that time, one, to reset, to re-energize, and so you can really serve the people that you're meant to serve well.
And I think that's the point. Go up on the mountain or go out to the beach and hear and watch the waves lap, right? And just think about what it's all about. Now, for 2023 and what you're doing, obviously, you will keep reinventing perspectives.
Yes, that's the plan, Tom. That's the plan. So 2023, our plan is that we're going to be focusing on, rather than just serving the people that we're serving in the way we were. I think we identified that we need to sort of improve the success rate of people that have worked with us. Mm-hmm. And we need to take that on as part of how we're going to manage to do that. So we're sort of introducing certain elements to improve the success rate of the people we're working in 2023. And we'll see how that goes. And we're testing, and what works we'll keep, what doesn't work we'll let go, and we'll keep testing so we can get better.
Well, it sounds like a great business decision. It sounds like it fits all businesses, right?
Every business, I think it does, yeah.
But what is your geographical focus? Do you have one?
No. We don't have a geographical focus. What we're doing is we're niching on a certain type of business person. That's going to be our focus now. Because I think if we do that, then we can really understand the people we're serving rather than if we focus on area. So we want to really make sure that those relationships that we have go really deep. I think that's going to be a really big, important step in next year, is really trying to make sure that we build up those relationships, because that's what business is about after all. It's all about relationships. But it's easy to get caught up in being transactional. And as you get busy, it's easy to get caught up in being transactional.
I can see that, but what I also hear you saying is that you have to create the mindset. And if you have, it's a community mindset. So if you can attract other like-minded persons into that community, then it doesn't really have to be, it could be in the mountains or on the beach, it doesn't matter.
Well, that's our hope, Tom. That's our hope, is to attract more people that are like-minded, build each other up, and build deep relationships, and see where that goes.
Well, to the point of change again. Now you've changed, you've gone from Perth to Tasmania. How did that impact you as a business person, and how did that impact you as a family?
As a business person, the good thing is the move kind of forced me to stop what I was doing, to have a rethink about it. And in thinking about it, certain things came to mind, because then I realized, okay, that equation of sort of having the right mindset, having the right vehicle, and I started to question, is this the right vehicle to give me the outcome that I want? So it helped me to sort of say, what has to go so that we can get to the destination? When you hit a little turbulence in the airplane, some things have got to go if you're going to get to where you're going. Right. So that's the process that moving sort of helped me to go through. A necessary process that I think for business owners, sometimes when you're in the business, it's hard for you to even stop, because it's almost like you fear stopping.
Right.
And you fear the outcome of stopping. But sometimes you have to let go of good to get to great, right? So sometimes you get that forced stop that'll help you to sort of recalibrate and do things at a higher level. And that's sort of what I felt that the move did for me. And it wasn't planned. It wasn't any plan of mine, but that's what has happened. And from family-wise, I think it's allowed my family and I to have a lot more quiet time, a lot more time together. Because when you live in a big city, it's almost like you're always trying to go somewhere. If you're not going to the movies, you're planning to go somewhere else. And It's all these things that seem like they're time together, but they're not as much time together as, doing the simple things of going to sit by the beach and just talk it out, So it's been good for the family.
Now, that's back to what you said originally about Tasmania, about the difference in the climate. They say the climate, not in the sense of weather, but the climate of relationship climate. The people come together. We see the same thing here in the beaches in Brazil. Yeah, everybody comes together on a beach. The sand is the sand for everybody.
That's true. There's nothing like a good beach day, right?
But to that point of moving, and I moved last year. I went from a larger house now into a smaller apartment. But in the move, you just can't take everything. You do have to leave some things either behind, or you have to donate them. You have to do something. You have to adjust. The space is different, and that's a challenge. And even in a business sense, changing or moving your business, there are things you need to leave behind. How did that go for you when you had to leave behind something?
I think first it was just the fear of, okay, what does this mean? But at that time, I think I had to say, okay, as a family person, putting my family first, this move is going to be beneficial to the family. And then I'll figure out the business a little bit later on. And I think that helped me, because you start a business because you want to help to improve your family. And then somewhere along the lines, the family sort of becomes a back burner. And now it's like the business is forward and the family somewhere behind there. So just sort of reprioritizing everything has really helped. And it's also helped me to understand, okay, where am I trying to go again, by the way? Where is it that we're trying to go? So that's the process I think I'm still in. slowly, but I think it's becoming clear, and the pathway is clear for 2023. Let's test these ideas and let's see what we're going.
Very good. Well, certainly does sound like you're ready to go.
I think for the audience, I think every year, the new year is a great time. It's a great time to sort of let go of what hasn't happened, what has happened, what you wish happened, what you wish you did, and just say, okay, what am I going to do?
And do it.
And do it.
Very good. Well, Priscilla, I want to thank you again. And without a doubt, we'll be back during 2023 talking again.
Thank you so much, Tom.
And what's the best way for our listeners to find you?
The best way to find me is my website, www.reinventingperspectives.com, or you can find me through the podcast, Reinventing Perspectives Podcast.
Very good. So thanks again for being part.
Thank you, Tom.
And for sharing your time with our listeners, you can find Priscilla Nyahwa-Shumba on LinkedIn, and it's Priscilla, Nyahwa, Nyahwa-Shumba. You'll find her on Linktree, Priscilla Shumba, and you'll find her at Reinventing Perspective Podcast. I'd like to thank our audience and our sponsor, Focus MI Market Intelligence. Focus MI specializes in market research for the Brazilian agricultural market. More about them on their site, www.focusmi.com. Remember, when you talk to Tom, you talk to Brazil and the world. Goodbye, and thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to Tom Reaoch on Talk to Brazil, the business connector to Brazil.